Like, I have no inclination to where they're at right now. It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from. Like, I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad.
Police in Colorado have issued an alert for a pregnant mother and her 2 young daughters.
Had nothing to do with the act of an evil cruelty.
So you obviously are a really bad liar.
He is the sloppiest killer I've ever seen.
It looks like he's trying to cover his tracks.
Every time I close my eyes, I just hear her say, "Daddy, no," and that was it.
To me, it's the ultimate betrayal.
This was the case that people wanted a punishment for.
You're not going to be safe in your own house with your own husband. Where are you safe?
God have mercy on his soul for betraying with those kids and his wife. I think death is even not good enough for him.
This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life. He loved me. Nothing made sense.
The first time I ever heard about Shanann, Chris, Bella, and Cece was actually when the missing persons report was issued by the police department.
The initial news coverage said that there was a missing wife and 2 children.
It stirred such a reaction in the community. There was a thirst and a curiosity for any and every detail.
This is a small town where this really doesn't happen all that often. We're drawn to say, what happened to these people? They just disappeared from thin air.
They were a happy Colorado regular family.
Shanann and Chris seem to be living the all-American family dream in Frederick, Colorado, which is the blue-collar town. The father who goes out, works in the oil field early in the morning, comes home to the loving wife and their 2 young daughters. It all kind of took a turn once you realized that their love story wasn't as beautiful and clear as what was painted originally on social media.
My friend sent me a friend suggestion for him. It was actually his cousin's wife, and I deleted it. I was like, I am not interested. I don't want to meet a guy. Bye-bye. So I deleted her friend's suggestion for him. 2 months later, I went through one of the, I would say, darkest times of my life. I was diagnosed with some health challenges, and then I met Chris. I met Chris because of those health challenges. I thought my life was crumbling underneath me and I didn't know which way to turn. I didn't have a lot of friends at the time because a lot of my friends, the friends I did have, I lost because they didn't understand that I looked perfectly fine and I felt horribly inside, horribly. I was like, oh, what the heck, I'm never gonna meet him. Except one thing led to another, and 8 years later, we have 2 kids, we live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
I've known the family for 25 years. You know, I mean, when I first met him, he was really shy. He just kind of kept to himself. Was probably even a little girl scared, you know. He was more into school and sports, wasn't really assertive. His personality was just very peaceful and calm and quiet, and Shanann was super outgoing. I think that opposites attracted.
I met Shanann as her 9th grade high school theater teacher. We also became really good friends over time. We've known each other for 20 years. Her empathy was through the roof. She was great in how she cared for other people. Everybody who worked with her, when they talked to her, knew that they were heard. And I think that was one of her superpowers.
I think that he really fell in love with her fast, and they both just connected. They were together for about a year before he proposed to her.
It was almost as if Chris was her saving grace.
He knew me at my worst, and he accepted me, and he stuck around because he was the one for me. And he is amazing. And I can't tell you how wonderful he is.
Chris and Shanann decided to uproot from North Carolina and move all the way west to the Rocky Mountains in Frederick, Colorado. And Chris started working for one of the largest oil employers.
They had their babies, Celeste and Bella.
I mean, I remember, you know, following on social media, seeing birth announcements. You know, you have Bella who looks and acts just like Chris. And you have Cece that is a spitting image of Shanann, the all-American little family.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. He helped me snuggle
We did it again. I like that shirt. So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know. Just the test.
That's awesome.
They were finally able to have the baby boy that they had always wanted, and Shanann decides she wants to name him Nico.
Guess when you want to, it happens.
I always thought everything was great and fine and wonderful. Nobody was aware that there was any marital problems.
Shanann and Chris were putting off that they had it all together, but in reality, they had some financial struggles and ended up filing for bankruptcy.
It comes forth that, they had a court date where they were supposed to go and find out if they were going to be foreclosed on, I guess. That's going to be stressful for anyone.
Their financial situation was grim. They're around $70,000 in debt.
I think there was a lot of things going on behind closed doors, especially with her husband and the family dynamic that she just couldn't fix.
Chris and Shanann are already on rocky times. And then Chris enters one of his offices where he meets a woman named Nicole Kessinger.
Thank you so much for coming out here with me, Christopher. I'm having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me.
I mean, it broke my heart for her when I found out, he was cheating on her.
There was another person in this story. There was a lover on the side.
A normal person would go out and get a divorce or even a separation. Well, Chris couldn't do that. He wanted a solution, and he wanted a quick solution.
He was having an affair because he didn't feel appreciated anymore. There's so many different dynamics going on here. Before you know it, perfect storm is created.
From that point forward, a bunch of balls started rolling in the wrong direction. He wanted to have a new life, and this new life would happen with his new mistress.
He thought that he could just start over.
If it weren't for him falling in love with his mistress, there's a good chance that Shanann, Bella, and Cece would still be here.
Do you have any objections to us looking at everything in your phone?
In a way, she's almost a younger, more vibrant version of Shanann.
As soon as he met Nicole Kessinger, Chris wanted out.
She knew that he would always choose her.
That tells you everything you need to know about Chris Watts, is that he didn't know what it felt like to love someone.
This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life.
My name is Chris Watts. I'm doing my speech on relationship deterioration and repair.
Nicole Kessinger is one of Chris Watts' co-workers in Weld County. When she first meets Chris, she's under the impression that he's just a young bachelor who's looking for love.
Good guys are difficult to find, especially when you're in your 30s and you're not married yet. And here he was right here in her office.
Sometimes when you get married, that the lust and the desire kind of falls by the wayside a little bit. You no longer experience closeness, and you feel you might do better with someone else that you've met.
Chris ends up telling her, I am married right now, and I do have 2 young daughters at home.
I think Nicole Kessinger saw in Chris exactly what the world saw in Chris. He was an all-around nice guy, or that was the mask that he portrayed.
All of Chris's friends described him as a laid-back person, but very self-contained. Nobody felt like they really knew him.
So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know.
To Chris Watts, Nicole Kessinger was a breath of fresh air. She was not Shanann. She wasn't the wife. She wasn't the mother. She had nothing tying her down. She was different.
He was sort of in these routines with Shanann and the girls that had become, monotonous. Nikki Kessinger was listening to him and respecting him in a way that he had never felt before. I think at that point, it was an easy decision for him to start an affair.
They're texting almost nonstop, even though he's at home with his wife and his children. Shanann has no clue what's going on behind her back. Shanann goes away thinking that this is a way to reset the relationship, not knowing that it was actually igniting and fueling the relationship that Chris has with Nicole.
The perfect storm of factors that the affair began when Shanann and the girls left for the summer for 6 weeks.
Chris is taking Nicole out on dates. This is his opportunity to fully date without any eyes watching him.
Nicole Kessinger and Chris Watts had a dating life that was probably something like, 20-somethings would do.
You're so damn sexy.
Yeah, intoxication of affair is a very, very powerful drug. Sex is a powerful drug.
Chris is taking illicit photos of Nicole and saving them to his phone in a secret app.
He was able to do all these things that he wasn't able to do because he had children and he had a family and he had responsibilities.
And he's willing to do whatever it takes to continue to explore this relationship.
Everything was sunshine and roses, and I can't wait to see you again, and I'm addicted to you, and everything a young suitor would say to a woman when he first starts dating her.
In the height of his passion for Nikki, he Googled, what does it feel like when someone says, I love you? And I think that tells you everything you need to know about Chris Watts and his attachments, is that he didn't know what it felt like to love someone.
Shanann is in North Carolina with Bella and Cece. Multiple times she's trying to reach Chris. She's calling, she's texting him, and many of the times he's not responding at all or as quickly as he normally would. That's when Shanann starts to realize something's off here. There's something else going on. Chris shows up and he's pretty distant to Shanann.
North Carolina, Chris was on his phone a lot.
Shanann was starting to question why he was being so distant.
Who are you texting? Because it was a big, huge red flag.
She's texting her friends saying he's not only being weird when he was at home, but now Chris isn't even being physically close to me, even though we've been apart for so long.
Support each other, positive evaluations, positive feelings. Always disclose your feelings, as I said.
It's time to return to regular life. Shanann set up a gender reveal party where friends, family, neighbors were to come and find out that they were going to be having this baby boy. But she's starting to realize something's going wrong here. This is supposed to be an incredibly happy time for both of them.
He changed his mind about the baby as all of a sudden he sort of had this new interest. His mind was with another woman.
She's suspecting that maybe he's cheating on her.
You have to ask yourself 3 questions when you're in a relationship. Do I have a desire to keep this relationship going? Do I have a moral obligation to stay in this relationship? Or is it a necessity for me to stay in this relationship?
Shortly after Shanann cancels the gender reveal party, she goes on a business trip to Arizona. They go out to a restaurant. Chris wines and dines Nicole, but then realizes he doesn't have any way to pay for the meal other than with the credit card he shares with Shanann.
Shanann receives a notification about a credit card that Chris had used at the Lazy Dog restaurant that exceeded the amount of money that a normal person would use on his own meal.
And she's thinking there's no way that one person ate and drank $60 worth of food. That was the first moment Shanann felt like she had proof something else was going on.
Shanann knew the marriage was in trouble. She sent Chris a self-help book. She wanted to go to counseling, whereas Chris's solution for dealing with the problem was to plot murder.
Relationships are hard, but they're worth it in the end. And as the Swedish proverb says, a double joy is a shared joy, and a double sorrow is not a shared sorrow. Thank you.
It's early in the morning when her friend Nicole Atkinson drops her off at her home. Nicole Atkinson was under the impression that she was taking Shanann home to a place that should be a place of comfort, a place of security. There's no way she could have known that she was actually dropping her off to her final moments on earth.
Calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. Nicole will have an officer come out that way as soon as we can.
They're looking around, they go upstairs. There's no sign of Shanann or the girls.
I believe he thought that we would believe him.
You're afraid people think you may have done something.
Chris just murdered his entire family, his pregnant wife Shanann, Bella, Cece, and hours later, he's moving on with his life as if nothing ever happened.
He is texting with his realtor about putting his house on the market. He is calling the girls' school and telling them that they won't be coming back to school anymore. He even Googled the lyrics to a song by Metallica called Battery.
Chris is thinking that nobody has any suspicions of what's gone on. He doesn't know that Nicole Atkinson takes it upon herself to call 911.
I believe he thought he could pull it off. Chris might have gotten away with murder if it weren't for Nicole Atkinson.
This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life.
My name's Nicole, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. I dropped her off at her house at 2 in the morning last night, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her this morning. She's not answering the door. She's not responding to text messages, phone calls. I've had other friends reach out to her. None of us can get her to respond to us.
Shanann's best friend, Nicole Atkinson, had a gut feeling that something was wrong.
Alrighty, we do have a call in. Nicole will have an officer come out that way as soon as we can.
Ben.
Hi.
Here, Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, so what's going on?
So my friend, we were out of town for a business trip this weekend.
Right.
And I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning. She's 15 weeks pregnant. She wasn't feeling well. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9, and I told her to let me know if she needed me to take her. She's got 2 little girls. Her husband and her supposedly are separating, but she didn't know this. She thought they were just having issues. I called him, and I was like, have you talked or heard from Shanann since she left for work this morning? Because I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are right in the front door.
She only has one vehicle?
No, they only have the one vehicle in his work truck.
Okay. Shanann, are you home? Police department, if anyone's inside, make yourself known. Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything out of place. I'm not hearing kids. I'm not hearing anything.
The police officers wear a camera so that they can document the conversations between a suspect or witness. I'm sent these police cams to analyze them to be able to detect whether the person has suspect behavior or demeanor.
Scott, how you doing?
How's it going?
So this is the only vehicle she would have?
Only one that, yeah.
She would drive? Okay.
What's interesting is the garage door opens, and instead of yelling out for Shanann, he stops and opens up their car and starts looking through the car.
This is a stalling tactic to kind of gather his thoughts up a little bit.
He then walks in the house and is never heard calling their names, as if he knows they're not home. He goes in the house, he's in there for about a minute by himself, nobody goes in with him.
Can we go in the house?
I mean, that's up to him. It's his house. If you guys...
And that's when he comes around and politely lets in the police officer, Nicole Atkinson, and her son.
Mind if I come in, Chris? Okay.
They go upstairs, there's no sign of the girls there. They go in the basement, there's no sign of Shanann or the girls.
Her phone's here? Her phone's here.
Does she work?
Yeah, she works from home.
Oh, from home?
She works, this is her lifeline.
This could be the ticket to all the information, like she left the phone behind. But here's the other thing is that he didn't think that it was odd that the phone was left there.
You know her passcode?
I don't know her passcode.
It used to be 2385 and now it's 6 digits.
What's the baby's due date?
I don't believe Chris had planned to have the phone discovered. I think he planned to come back later and make some changes and do what he had to do to make it look as if Shanann was wandering around with her phone and doing other things.
He seems to be anxious. You can see this rocking movement in his body language.
But you told me that she went on a play date with the girls and then...
That's what she told me.
But instead of frantically calling around, asking for help, finding his wife, or if anyone's seen her, he's texting people.
He's trying to take attention off of himself, transferring his anxiety onto that phone. Nicole is like a hound dog. She knows something's up. She knows something's off. And she's looking over at Chris going, what the heck is wrong with you?
What time do you leave today?
What time I leave there?
Come there here.
Usually between 5:30 and 6.
Was Shanann here then?
Yes. Yeah, we outside.
At one point, the police officer is asking questions about where they might have been, and Chris conveniently walks straight into the bedroom and comes straight out, and on his finger is Shanann's wedding ring.
And he's pointing it out almost like he's pointing a gun. Here it is. I found the ring. This is the missing evidence.
I still to this day believe that was her wedding ring that he took out of the car.
What's that?
Nothing on there.
You just have my camera.
Is this on continually recording?
I get cars driving from this street, and this is him at 517.
It shows Chris very clearly walking out of the house by himself, backing his truck up into the driveway, and then loading something into the back of his truck.
What Chris Watts does, he's very purposeful. He goes into the garage, he walks out, he's got a gas can. He goes to put it on one side of the truck, and then he thinks twice, goes, well, I can't really put it there. But you can see him kind of moving, like apparently there's not room for it there. That wasn't going to fit. Let's go around to the other side. Oh, okay, now it'll fit, obviously, between the 3 dead bodies.
We usually park out there on the side. I just want to get everything back in. Be easier, so lugging everything out there, all the tools that I had to bring in.
Suddenly, this guy who had few words has a lot to say. He has an explanation for everything.
Then Chris started to fall apart a bit.
Chris Watts can barely watch it, right? So what happens when you arrest somebody? Get down on the ground, put your hands on your head. So he puts his hands on his head, even though he wasn't told. But that was a surrendering moment.
That's almost as if Chris was verbally saying, oh my gosh, I was not expecting this.
And you see him pacing and moving, nervous and anxious. Chris Watts' body language is betraying him.
So right now, police don't have probable cause to be able to arrest him because it still isn't clear where Shanann, Bella, and Cece went. They're never seen leaving the house.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Hopefully something comes up, dude. I've never seen him. If he loads his stuff, he normally just walks back and forth because I get him on camera. But the fact that he was in here and explaining to it over and over and over, well, odd. But he doesn't look worried. He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks.
Police in Colorado have issued an alert for a pregnant mother and her 2 young daughters.
Like, I have no inclination of where they're at right now. Like, if she wasn't here, like, where did she go? I'm just hoping right now that she's somewhere safe.
And when I saw him on the news, I knew there was foul play. There was just a huge element missing with him.
If she's vanished, like, I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad.
There was something more to this case, and the focus really started to center in on Chris.
Shannon, are you home? Police department, if anyone's inside, make yourself known.
Chris Watts just annihilated and buried his entire family.
Chris did not take into account security cameras. He didn't watch enough CSI.
The next door neighbor is showing the police officer the surveillance footage of Chris Watts loading up his truck at 5 o'clock in the morning.
It's on video 527. But he backs like into the garage partially because you can't see like the tailgate area, so you can't see what he's loading.
Nobody was going to buy that Shanann would take her children and run off and never be heard from again.
You told me that she went on a play date with
He had every confidence in the world. He honestly thought he could fool everyone.
Nobody's heard from me, nobody's seen.
This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life.
This young lady and her kids are missing.
A missing persons report is issued to the public saying that Shanann, Bella, and Cece are all missing.
Police in Colorado have issued an alert for a pregnant mother and her 2 young daughters. They were reported missing on Monday.
In a matter of hours, suddenly the small town of Frederick turned into the epicenter of media focus for that night's news.
Chris Jordan, customers are good to meet you. Thanks for talking with me.
There was a media frenzy. Everyone, everywhere, around the world, everyone was interested in this case from the get-go.
So Chris goes on multiple Denver TV channels and pleads for the public to help him find his loved ones, even though he knows there's no way they're coming back.
I have no inclination of where they're at right now. Like, I've exhausted like every friend that I know of, and every friend that I have has called friends that Shanann has that maybe I didn't know about. I have no idea like where they went. And it's just earth-shattering. I don't feel like this is even real right now. It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from. I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad.
He was saying all the right things, but there was something in your gut that you knew that he did it.
He smirks after he makes a comment.
I want those kids back so bad.
And that's what we call duping delight. He thinks he's such a great performer and pulling this whole story off.
Bella was going to start kindergarten next Monday.
He says Bella was to start kindergarten soon. He's viewing her as dead because he already knew she was not going to be coming home.
Something just seems off. His body language and his mannerisms are raising red flags.
It's really hard to even suspect anything right now as far as how she could have left, or if someone came picked her up, or if someone took her.
There was something more to this case than all of us realized. A lot of things aren't adding up. Police want to sit him down and talk with him.
And then it sort of spiraled from there.
I'm going to sit next to you so we're going to look at it together.
The police officer set this up as a very informal interview at the Frederick Police Department. Chris is brought in, sat down, given something to drink, but at the same time, up in the corner of the room, a camera is recording.
The police officer is trying to gather information, building rapport and creating safeness.
Have you ever watched the news and said 2 girls and a pregnant woman go missing? Okay, if that's all you heard, what do you think the public thinks? Husband. The day she goes missing is the day that you guys have marital discord. What do you think about that?
People knew that we were having marital issues. They're going to look at me, especially with the way everything looks. On that night, I woke up that morning, early that morning, I told her, like, the disconnection, it's there. Like, it's not going away. Like, the connection we had in the beginning, it's not there anymore. It's like, I don't feel like the love we have is there anymore. At the end, we just said, you know, she said she was going to take the kids to her friend's house today. She would be back. 5:30, that's when I went to work.
What do you think happened?
At first, I really thought maybe she was just at somebody's house, just decompressing.
Going off steam?
Yeah. But after today, like with the onslaught of all the cars, I mean all the police cars, all the news, all the K-9 units, it's making me lean the other direction about someone took her.
Okay.
But it's just, if someone took her, it would have to have been someone she knew.
It's crazy to think that he could, you know, that he would just be so compliant, knowing right where they were.
Are you sure she said she'll be back later? On a scale of 1 to 10, how positive?
That's a 10.
A 10?
Yeah.
Okay. I need to ask you about your marriage and infidelity.
I have never cheated on my wife. She's always been a trustworthy person. I've always been a trustworthy person. I fully expect if we ever thought about straying another way, that we would tell each other before it happened.
I think that sounds ridiculous.
They're asking more in-depth questions, and they're also starting to corner him, not only through his story, but also physically, by making him sit in the corner of the room and setting themselves up between him and the door, as if the only way you're getting out this door is if you go through me first.
This doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up. So can we talk about the tale of 2 Chris's? Chris number 1 fell out of love with his wife, started wondering what it might be. He didn't have a wife to take care of and a girl to take care of. Spent some time alone, liked that time alone, came home, may or may not have had a conversation about how to get out of this marriage or how to fix it, but probably how to get out of it. Was looking at a bachelor pad in Brighton and did something terrible to his wife and kids, and that may have been an accident. And I think it was an accident.
That's not the Chris you're looking at right now. The Chris you're looking at is the man who loves these kids and loves his wife and will never, ever, ever do anything to harm them.
Why should I believe you?
Because I'm a very trustworthy person.
Chris was almost overconfident that his ability to charm would win the investigators over.
You talk to any of my friends, any of her friends, they know me. They know I would never harm my kids. I would never harm my wife. I'm not about confrontation.
Now, Chris is portraying himself as the least likely suspect in this scenario.
I love these girls. I love these girls so much. And this picture right here, Celeste and Bella, those are my life. I helped make those kids. There's nothing in my life that means more to me than these kids. Nothing.
Nothing you've told me tonight makes sense. Nothing you've told me tonight feels like the truth. There's something that happened that got maybe a little bit out of control.
There was no fight. There was nothing physical. It was a conversation. We didn't raise our voice. Nothing.
He is a free man. He's able to walk out of the room at any point if he wants, but he continues to offer up information to any question that they ask.
They're going to come home safe, correct? When you find the guy.
When we find the guy, they're going to come home.
Life in prison would be that's what I would think with 2 kids that are involved.
What if he hurt them?
I'm not sure if that penalty is even Is it used in Colorado? I'm not even sure what is. The death penalty?
The investigators tells him, "You're probably wondering why I asked some of these questions, and you're probably wondering if I think you're a suspect.
I'm not the only one who thinks that there's a possibility you have something to do with this.
You're going to go home tonight and think about the moments where you might have slipped. Come back tomorrow and we'll continue to talk."
You know that we have to get to the bottom of this. You know that?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you take a polygraph? Sure.
Chris leaves a free man from the Frederick Police Department on August 14th. On August 15th, Chris agrees to do a lie detector test.
Regarding Shanann's disappearance, do you intend to answer all of the questions truthfully?
Yes.
He thought that they were not looking at him. He thought he could breeze through a polygraph test.
Right now, there's only one person in this room that knows what the truth is. And in about 5 minutes, there's going to be 2 of us.
That's one heck of a way to start a polygraph.
When the case first broke, Shanann and Cece and Bella were simply missing.
Like, I have no inclination of where they're at right now.
Something in your gut was telling you that he had something to do with it.
Chris Watts thought that he could go to the police department, knowing the fact that he killed his family.
Why should I believe you? Because I'm a very trustworthy person.
Aggressive behavior predicts future behavior. Chris had none of that in his past.
He thought that they were not looking at him.
They're going to come home safe, correct? When you find the guy.
He thought he could breeze through a polygraph test.
Regarding Shanann's disappearance, do you intend to answer all of the questions truthfully?
Yes. This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life.
The Frederick Police Department asked Chris Watts to come down to discuss a few matters with them about his wife and children and their disappearance.
Chris returns on the 15th, without hesitation, agrees to take a lie detector test.
This is one way that if you didn't have anything to do with it, that we can let the investigators know, the people that really do need to know, that are looking for your wife and your little girls, to let them know, like, you know what, don't focus on Chris, focus over here, because obviously we've already cleared him, he's good to go. Now focus on the real person that did something to this, you know, to Shanann and little girls. So.
He is instructed to intentionally lie about a series of unrelated questions to the case.
Regarding what number you wrote on the piece of paper, did you write the number 1?
No.
Did you write the number 2?
No.
Did you write the number 3?
No.
She's trying to see how he normally responds physiologically, pulse, respiration, heart rate.
You did great. You remembered to lie and everything. That was awesome. So you obviously are a really bad liar. Have people told you that before? Like the second you tell a lie, like they can tell like on your face that. Because the second you lied to the number 3, like I don't know if you heard me clicking, but I had to like turn down the sensitivity because you were starting to go off the page. So that is awesome. So thank you for being a horrible liar. No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We don't want to be good liars. So thank you for being a horrible liar. And that just shows me that, you know, obviously on the test when we're asking, you know, significant stuff about your wife, if you're lying to that, it's going to be even 10 times more amplified. So
now she's got his baseline. So then she can start asking those very probative questions.
Right now, there's only one person in this room that knows what the truth is. And in about 5 minutes, there's going to be 2 of us. So that's the coolest part, okay?
She tells him, there's no way you're going to walk out of here without telling the complete truth.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still. Regarding Shanann's disappearance, do you intend to answer all of the questions truthfully?
Yes.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
Do you know where Shanann is now?
No.
his numbers were spiking like no other. He's having to convince himself, there's no way out of this. I've already agreed to doing this now. I have to set the tone and make sure that they believe what I'm about to say.
Before 2018, did you ever lose your temper with someone you cared about?
No.
Are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann?
No.
So it is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing, and I think you already know that. He did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. And I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise.
Now that Chris has failed the polygraph test, it's time to open up. And the investigators make that very clear. Your opportunity of giving us a different story, of diverting us away from you, is over.
I know you were being deceptive, so that's not even an issue right now. The issue right now is what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste.
That's when the investigators start to play a little good cop, bad cop.
We know a lot more than you think we do, okay? And here's where we're confused. You're this great guy, and I'm not just telling you that, okay? I'm telling you that because everyone tells us that, okay? We can't find anyone saying anything bad about you. But you are here today lying about something else. So we need to talk about that, okay?
Chris Watts does admit to something, but it's not what you would expect.
I cheated on her. I know.
Chris admits to having an affair with Nicole Kessinger, cheating on Shanann, and the police officers respond with,
So, going into that interview today with Tammy, where we strapped you in, we knew all about Nikki.
He didn't know that Nicole Kessinger, his mistress, had already came in and spilled the beans about their relationship.
Monday afternoon, he told me that she was like gone and he didn't know where she was. Kind of under the impression, since they're separating, that maybe she decided to take the kids. And then yesterday rolled around and she's still not around. And that started to seem really concerning for me. At that point, I was like, you know what? I hope something did not happen to her and did not happen to her children. And that was when I decided that it's probably a good idea to just come talk to you guys.
So then Chris is sitting there and realizes, these people know a little more than I realized.
Chris, in the interview today, you weren't asked about infidelity.
I do believe when he confessed to that affair, I think he thought that he'd be home free at that point where they'd say, that's why you lied.
I should have just told her right then. But I didn't, because I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
I just find it hard to hear you talk about just having this emotional, conversation with Shanann, and you're bawling and crying together, and you have not shed one tear in 2 days that you've been here. Not one. And help me understand that, because I don't get it. These are your baby girls, and you have not shed one tear over them not being around.
The polygrapher and the investigator start to throw out other ideas that Chris can latch to.
Did Shanann do something?
If she did anything to these kids, we both love them with all our hearts. There's no way.
It could have been an accident. Something happened in the house that you know about. But I want to know, did something happen to these baby girls first that you had to take into your own hands and deal with?
You had to clean it up for Shanann.
What did Shanann do to them? Tell us, Chris. Chicks are crazy.
And it's at that point where he says, my father flew in from North Carolina. Is he outside?
Can I talk to my dad or something?
Absolutely. Come. Do you want to bring him in here? If we brought your dad in here, would you please tell him what happened?
And at that point in time, Ronnie was present in the building, and law enforcement approached him and asked him if he was willing to speak with Christopher, because Christopher wanted to talk to his dad.
Hey, Chris, we're going to let you have however much time you need, okay?
Sure. You know he was in there or no?
Yes.
Okay.
So Rodney walks into the room. His father was not making eye contact with Chris. And you could see that where his father was almost guarding himself, like ready to hear bad news. And at this point in time is when Chris Watts starts to reveal what really happened.
She heard him.
The disbelief on Ronnie's face says it all.
It caused him pain to hear his son say that.
Chris thought, well, once I tell this story to my dad, I'm going to be seen as a hero.
Those investigators are guiding him toward admitting more than he has in the past.
Did the hard part. We have left details where they're at.
After Chris Watts, a husband and father, made a plea for his missing wife and daughter's safe return.
I want those kids back so bad.
Police now consider him a suspect.
He said when he left, she was in bed sleeping. It's kind of odd, nothing's on the bed.
Authorities say his story just doesn't add up.
What happens when a coroner looks and says sees your fingerprints on her neck?
I was scared. I didn't know what else to do.
Scared of what?
Scared of what everything was going to look like. This was a nightmare.
Yeah.
He did not pass the polygraph test, so now we need to talk about what actually happened.
They say it's very clear you were deceptive to us, Chris.
Let us find your little girls so that they're not out there somewhere.
This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life.
I promise you, when you start talking to us, you will feel better. You gotta help me.
Chris, we're giving you a lifeline right now. You need to take it. You need to reach out and take it.
Tammy Lee and then Agent Coder from the FBI interrogated Chris a little bit further. And Tammy wouldn't let up on him. She continued to say that the polygraph, you failed the polygraph, you might as well come clean right now.
They were at the house when I left. They were there.
They weren't there. They didn't leave. They vanished.
They were
The
there.
only way they could have left is in your truck.
There's no way, because, like, I didn't just throw them in my truck.
The night the event took place, there's a few little spotlights that are outside, but you can barely see what he was up to.
Chris is seen backing his truck up into the family's driveway. And there he is seen loading something into the back seat of the truck. And then he drives out to a remote location in Weld County.
You know your truck has GPS,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You know that thing pings every 10 seconds?
Yep.
So we will know exactly where you went.
It painted a very clear map from his house out to Survey 319 in the oil location where Chris normally works.
He was backed up to the wall pretty much the entire time and he didn't even know it.
Can I talk to my dad or something?
Absolutely.
Come.
Do you want to bring him in here?
Flew across the country.
If we brought your dad in here, would you please tell him what happened?
Ronnie and Cindy Watts are the parents of Christopher Watts. Cindy and Ronnie explained to me that they had actually been in direct communication with law enforcement, that Ronnie had flown to Colorado after speaking to Chris.
Polygraph. Failed it. Yeah, because there's too much emotions. So, I mean, they're not going to let me go. Huh?
She heard him?
Yeah. And well, no, I doubt not her.
You're a girl.
The one?
You smell it? Or choking?
Mm-hmm.
She freaked out over the separation of everything.
I heard like a little commotion upstairs, but I didn't think anything of it.
Mm-hmm. And then you went back upstairs and she was...
I could see, like, she was on up.
Choking her, or did she kill her?
They're blue.
Both of them?
Yeah.
She choked both of them to death.
I freaked out at the same thing.
what is being said is painful. It's hard to process.
You know what to do? All the bodies off or something? I didn't know what to do. So she killed WCC and choked on death. Lost it and choke her or that's rage. I'm bad.
The disbelief on Ronnie's face says it all. Here he's having to listen to his son admit to murdering his daughter-in-law. But at the same time, he's having to console him because he believes that his son is also the victim here, because he believes Chris, his daughters, were killed by Shanann.
Married and something or babies. That's what I feel horrible about. They're in a freaking oil tank. I didn't know what else to do. Please God, forgive me for it.
This is the story that Chris first gave up, and investigators used it as a stepping stone to lead to what actually did happen.
Ronnie left and was under the impression that the information that he and his son had discussed was confirmed.
Within minutes of him admitting that he killed Shanann, they already had a printout diagram of the location where he disposed of his loved ones' bodies.
That looks familiar to you? What is that?
It's the PRC Surgery 319.
Okay. Whereabouts is Shanann and the girls? The S for Shanann. Okay. And where are the girls at? In these?
And Chris pointed to, he actually marked with letters, you know, B for Bella and C for Celeste and S for Shanann, where exactly he disposed of their bodies.
Are they in the tanks? Can somebody who doesn't know what they're doing open those? Okay, it's easy to open.
What's in the tank?
It's a mixture of oil and water.
So do you want someone to find them?
I didn't know what else to do. I didn't. That was the location I was going out to that morning.
Anyway.
And that's, I didn't know what else to do.
So you weren't thinking that far ahead?
No.
They were already out on the scene because they knew the GPS took them there. A team of investigators moved in with the tough task of having to retrieve the bodies. Shanann's body was relatively simple to retrieve because it was only under some dirt. Getting Bella and Celeste out of those tanks was much more of a challenge than anyone expected. They knew that they were in the tanks, and the only way to get them out from an opening is to drain the tanks of the oil and then pull the children out from the base. There's a lot of investigators whose lives were forever changed by this incident.
How do you look at those babies and put them into an oil tank? It does not seem like something a human being could do.
After Chris is arrested and booked into the Weld County Jail, the case progresses very quickly. There was a line out the courtroom door, down the hall, and around the corner of people wanting to see him sentenced for the actions he confessed to doing.
This was the case that people wanted a punishment for.
After playing the grieving husband, Chris Watts confesses to killing his family and dumping their bodies at an oil and gas work site outside of Frederick, Colorado.
Married and something, or that's what I feel horrible about. They're in a freaking oil tank.
He literally just put his 3- and 4-year-old daughters in oil tanks and strangled his wife and buried her in a shallow grave.
Getting Bella and Celeste out of those tanks was much more of a challenge than anyone expected.
This man stood on his porch and begged for the return of his family. How could we have been so fooled? It does not seem like something a human being could do.
God have mercy on his soul for betraying those kids and his wife.
This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life.
So after we look at their bodies, we're gonna have a lot more questions. You know, you certainly did what you did, but I think you took a lot of steps to make it better today.
Sorry I left you last night, and sorry I lied to you today.
Chris Watts gave an initial confession to Tammy Lee and Agent Coder. He told them that he killed Shanann, but Shanann had murdered the girls.
Christopher Watts had not admitted that he had taken his children's life.
So what's gonna happen when their cause of death comes back to you, or the girl's not going to? Okay? You sure?
I'm 100% positive it's not going to come back to me.
I would hate for Shanann to get a bad rap if she didn't have anything to do with it. You know, it's not fair.
I know.
So, you want to tell us the truth?
That is the truth. Did not hurt this girl.
Chris knew that even if he did kill his wife in a fit of rage, he's going to go to jail for it.
After a full day of interrogation and a failed polygraph test, and now a confession just before midnight, Chris is arrested.
Chris, just stand up for me. I'm going to have you face that wall. Just lift up your hands.
This afternoon, my office filed formal charges against Christopher Lee Watts. 3 counts of murder in the first degree after deliberation. 1 count naming Shanann Watts. 1 count naming Bella. 1 count naming Celeste.
About 2 months after the disappearances, Chris makes a trade with the district attorney that he will admit guilt to all 3 murders so long as they do not pursue the death penalty with him.
Christopher was entering a guilty plea to having killed the children. He was going to get a life sentence.
There was no way that he was going to be able to fight this in court.
This case brought in so much attention that when it came to his sentencing, there was a line out the courtroom door of people wanting to see him sentenced.
There was a media frenzy. Everyone, everywhere, all the news channels around the world.
This was the case that people wanted a punishment for.
Chris was brought in shackled, wearing an orange jumpsuit, never made eye contact with anybody.
There's never an amount of justice for that kind of murder and that betrayal. I think death is even not good enough for him.
Please rise. 46th session, the Honorable Marcelo Cotton presiding.
Good morning, you're welcome to be seated. The questions that have screamed out to anyone who will listen since August 13th of 2018 are why and how? Why did this have to happen? How could a seemingly normal husband and father annihilate his entire family? For what? These are the questions that only one individual in this courtroom or on this planet knows the answers to.
Shanann, Bella, and Nico love and caring people. They love life. They love being around people who love them. I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. You buried my daughter Shanann and Nico in a shallow grave, and then you put Bella and Celeste in huge containers of crude oil. You heartless monster. This is hard to say, but may God have mercy on your soul. I hope you enjoy your new life. It's nothing like the one you had out here.
We loved you like a son. We trusted you.
Your faithful wife trusted you. Your children adored you, and they also trusted you. Your daughter Bella Marie sang a song proudly. I don't know if you got to see it, but it was Daddy, You're My Hero. I have no idea who gave you the right to take their lives.
The entire time, Chris just hung his head and looked straight down.
These kids who looked up to you and expected you to be their daddy, like, that's the ultimate betrayal of trust.
You know, the Watts family spoke, and of course they're devastated as much as the Ruseks are.
It was their intention to introduce themselves as grandparents who had suffered an extraordinary loss, and that they were in as much a shock as anyone, and maybe more so.
Our families have been irreparably broken by the needless deaths of Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico. This is something we will never get over. We will always mourn the loss of our family, and in that, we are united in our grief. Now to my son, Christopher. I have known you since the day you were born into this world. I have watched you grow from a quiet and sweet, curious child who Bella reminded me so much of, to a young man who worked hard in sports and later mechanics to achieve your goals. You are a good friend, brother, father, and son. We have loved you from the beginning, and we still love you now. Your father and sister and I are struggling to understand why, but we will remain faithful as your family. We love you, and we forgive you, son.
The room was not what I had experienced in a courtroom before. It was one of just sadness.
Two families who have been absolutely destroyed by the actions of this man.
Everyone was grieving in that room.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mr. Watts has asked us to share this morning that he is devastated by all of this. And although he understands that words are hollow at this point, he is sincerely sorry for all of this. Thank you.
I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could objectively say that this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen.
Before a judge, Chris Watts pleads guilty to the murder of Bella, Shanann, and Celeste, and also an unlawful termination of a pregnancy, that being his first son, Nico.
Deputies, I would respectfully ask that you take this defendant into custody and have him serve the rest of his life in the Department of Corrections.
After Christopher Watts was sentenced, there was closure. There was a sense of relief and sadness and disbelief that it could happen in such a small town.
I don't know if anyone felt that justice had been served.
I don't have grace for him. That's one of the worst betrayals a human can do, is the betrayal of a father to a daughter. So no, I don't selfishly think that he got justice, but I'm grateful that I'm not the judge.
After Chris went to prison, we thought we would never hear from him again, but it was actually only just beginning.
Convicted killer Chris Watts tells all from his prison cell. The details are shocking.
He never officially confessed to killing his children, and it haunted the investigators.
His final confession, it is so horrific.
I woke up that morning, it was going to happen, and I had no control of it.
Shanann is clearly not to be blamed for this.
The man who he portrayed himself to be did not exist.
Chris Watts, who reported his wife Shanann and his daughters Bella and Celeste missing, is now being charged with their murders.
This is the most inhumane, vicious crime that I have handled.
Months after claiming that he was innocent, he finds himself in prison.
Take this defendant into custody and have him serve the rest of his life in the Department of Corrections.
He will never come out of prison alive.
Even though Chris pled guilty to all charges, he never officially confessed to killing his children. And it haunted the investigators that they never knew what happened.
If you're not being truthful about who took their lives,
I just want the truth.
We thought we would never hear from him again, but it was actually only just beginning.
This is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life.
Chris Watts reveals the gruesome details of the murders of his wife and daughters. The convicted killer speaks with investigators from inside his Wisconsin prison cell.
After being sentenced, Chris was taken to prison to Waupun, Wisconsin, where he's now at the Dodge Correctional Facility.
Investigators from Frederick Police Department and CBI flew to Wisconsin and tried to extract another confession from him.
But we never really got to talk about that night. That's what happened.
It was, me and Shanann, she got home like at 2 o'clock. I felt her get into bed, and I could kind of feel her kind of stirring around a little bit. I just had a feeling that she knew like what was going on. I don't even want to say it, I felt like I had to. It just felt like there was already something in my mind that was implanted that I was going to do it, and I woke up that morning, it was going to happen, and I had no control of it. I woke her up, and it's like, hey, we just gotta talk. And I just like told her, I don't feel compatible. I don't feel like this is gonna work.
Chris wants to tell her he wants a divorce and he's having an affair. That's the first time that he ever admits to Shanann that there is another woman in the picture, is moments after she got home.
And she's like, I knew there was somebody else. And she's like, never gonna see the kids again. Never gonna see them again. Get off. Don't hurt them again.
That's when Chris gets on top of his pregnant wife and starts to strangle her.
Strangulation is a very personal form of murdering somebody.
Chris says Shanann didn't say anything. He claims she didn't fight back.
Why do you think she wasn't fighting?
I don't know. Maybe she was praying. The scripture says, don't forgive these people for they do not know what they do. Maybe she was saying that. I don't know what she was saying in her head. Did I know I was going to do that before I got on top of her? It's kind of like I just saw my life just disappearing before my eyes, but it just like I couldn't let go. It was like somebody else, like if you picture somebody else around you, holding your hands, holding you, keep you from not letting go. And when she was gone, it was just like I didn't know what was going on. I was shaking. I didn't know what had happened.
Shortly after he killed Shanann, he was pulling her off the bed with a bed sheet. And that's when his oldest daughter, Bella, walked in the room and saw what was going on.
What'd she say?
Mom,
He wrapped up Shanann's body. He took her downstairs to the garage.
Tempted to pick her up and take her down, but I lost grip after a little while. So I didn't pull.
Did Bella see you do that? What was Bella saying?
She started crying a little bit. She's like, what's wrong, Mom?
And what did you say that time?
She doesn't feel good. She's a smart girl. She didn't know what was going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Bella watched him as he dragged his wife's body down the staircase to his truck. He loads Shanann's body into the back of his truck, and then his 2 daughters alive.
And honestly, like I try to picture that whole ride, like it's like 45 minutes to an hour ride out there. And it's just like, couldn't I have like saved my girl's life? Couldn't I have done something? Why did I do it? I don't know.
Right.
Like this is my flesh and blood. This is like what I wanted all my life, was to be a dad, just to have, kids, and they loved me, all that, and it just nothing made sense.
He admits to taking them out to Zerby 319.
He proceeded to dig a shallow grave for Shanann and cover her back up.
He then returns to his vehicle with his 2 daughters, and then he grabs Cece's favorite blanket and smothers her.
Exactly the same thing that happened to me, Cece.
Bella was fully aware of what just happened.
I don't know if I just said yes like a horrible person, or if I just put that blanket over her too and did the same thing. It's like every time I closed my eyes, I started to hear her saying, "Daddy, no," and that was it. I hear that every day.
She fought for her life.
Then he took the children one at a time and he put them into the oil tanks.
Those are my kids. This is my baby. I have to talk to them every night. I don't see how this could happen. Okay. Every time I see pictures of them, I don't know how this could have happened. Being a dad was the best part of my life. I took it all away.
The details were so intricate and involved so much reality in them that I don't think he could make that up.
Because Chris first blamed Shanann for these murders, there are people who still think that he's sitting in prison as an innocent man.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I'd be in prison the rest of my life, but I didn't want them, anybody had to trash her memory. I wanted them to know she's a loving wife, she's beautiful, she always helped everybody else, all her friends, her just friends, everybody. I didn't want anybody to take away what she did.
And I couldn't imagine a more beautiful, most amazing person for that to happen to.
I really believe that she did think she had the perfect life and she really was happy.
You go through the denial and you go through the why and the how and the nothing makes sense.
How do you have closure when you don't understand it?
We really need to get better as a society about honing our relational skills and learning how to deal with conflict, to deal with stress, to not brush problems under the rug where they get so big and so overwhelming that you can't come back from them.
I did go to the funeral and it was very hard. I wasn't expecting it to hit me like it did when they brought out 3 caskets, and I couldn't believe it happened.
You're not supposed to bury your children and certainly not your grandchildren. I believe the Watts family as well as the Rusek family are not together mourning, but they're certainly mourning equally.
Everybody buried their issues with one another.
It's going to be incredibly difficult for the Rusek family and the Watts family to fully heal from this or move on from it.
Ronnie and Cindy Watts, they were not ready for the impact that it was going to have upon them. This feels like it just happened every day.
And I do think that we're all 5 seconds away from choices that are going to lead us down a path to make us or break us.
Chris Watts was your all-American dad with everything any man would ever want. Now he's sitting in a cell, convicted of the murders of everything he once loved.
Shanann was buried as Shanann Rusek. They're all together finally in North Carolina.
There's a lot of trauma that went through this case. There's a lot of tears that were shed.
This case is a good example of how the process is designed to heal, but in order for that opportunity to exist, you have to respect the process.
As far as Shanann's family, I just hope they're able to focus on the time that they did have. Shanann was such an empathetic person. I think we could change the world with people like Shanann if we were willing to learn from her legacy.
The small town of Frederick, Colorado wants to remember Shanann, Bella, and Cece, and baby Nico, while also trying to make sure that this town can heal from the wounds.